The year was 2289. Earth was no longer the world it had been in the 21st century. Climate change had long since reshaped its surface, but humanity had adapted. Vast floating cities drifted above oceans that had swallowed much of the old coastlines, their gleaming spires piercing the clouds. The land that remained was lush and vibrant, reclaimed by nature after centuries of human withdrawal. Forests thrived where metropolises once stood, and deserts had been transformed into sprawling solar farms that powered the planet. Humanity itself had evolved, not biologically, but technologically. The line between flesh and machine had blurred to near invisibility. Neural interfaces allowed minds to communicate directly with one another, bypassing speech entirely. Artificial limbs were indistinguishable from organic ones, and internal nanotechnology kept diseases at bay, repairing cells faster than they could decay. For many, death had become an abstract concept. Consciousness could be digitized and transferred into new bodies or even stored in vast data vaults until needed again. Tech humans were more than enhanced individuals. They were a new kind of being altogether. Their bodies were integrated with advanced systems from birth. Augmented eyes capable of seeing across spectrums invisible to the naked eye, processors embedded in their brains that allowed them to calculate faster than any supercomputer, and adaptive exoskeletons that made them stronger and faster than any natural-born human could hope to be. Yet for all their advancements, they were not separate from humanity. They were humanity, an extension of it. They lived alongside unaugmented humans in harmony, bound by shared history and purpose. Society was a tapestry woven from these two threads, biological humans and tech humans. The former often chose simplicity, living in harmony with nature in self-sustaining communities that dotted the planet's surface. The latter thrived in the floating cities or worked tirelessly in orbiting stations that mined asteroids for resources or explored the outer reaches of the solar system. There was no animosity between them. Each understood their role in a greater whole. Humanity had learned long ago that survival required unity, not division. It was a golden age, an era of peace and prosperity unlike any other in human history. Wars were relics of the past. Resources were abundant thanks to advances in fusion energy and off-world mining. Disease and poverty had been eradicated through technology and cooperation. For the first time in millennia, humanity looked outward not with fear, but with curiosity and hope. And then came the arrival. It began as a distant shimmer in the night sky, 9 points of light moving in perfect formation against the backdrop of stars. At first, astronomers thought it might be some natural phenomenon or perhaps a rogue fleet from one of humanity's distant colonies returning home after centuries away. But as the objects drew closer, their true nature became horrifyingly clear. They were ships, massive beyond comprehension, each one larger than any structure ever built by human hands. Their surfaces were sleek and black as obsidian, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. They moved with an eerie precision, defying every known law of physics as if gravity itself bent to their will. Panic rippled across the globe as sensors confirmed what many feared. These ships were not human-made. They bore no markings or signals that could be deciphered, no attempt at communication, no indication of intent. They simply loomed above Earth like silent gods descending from the heavens. The largest of them positioned itself over what remained of New York City, a sprawling arcology that stretched from what was once Manhattan deep into the Atlantic Ocean. The others spread out across the planet, one over Tokyo Bay, another above Rio de Janeiro's floating platforms, others over Cairo's solar deserts and Berlin's orbital elevator hub. Each ship cast an immense shadow over its chosen location, blotting out the sun for miles around. For hours they hung there, motionless yet menacing, a cosmic sword of Damocles suspended above an unsuspecting world. And then came the sound. It wasn't a sound in the traditional sense. It bypassed ears entirely and resonated directly within every human mind on Earth. A deep, reverberating hum that carried with it an unmistakable message. We have come. The world held its breath as humanity's golden age teetered on the brink of annihilation. But what these invaders didn't know, what they couldn't have known, was that humanity was no longer helpless prey waiting to be conquered. We had evolved into something far greater than they could have anticipated. And we would fight back. The 9 massive, oblong ships hung in the skies like silent sentinels, their matte black surfaces absorbing light and radiating an oppressive stillness. Each ship was positioned with deliberate precision over key locations across the globe. New York, Tokyo Bay, Rio de Janeiro, Cairo, Berlin, Sydney, Johannesburg, Mumbai, and Mexico City. They were immense, each one larger than the largest skyscraper ever built, and utterly alien. Their shape resembled a tic-tac, smooth and featureless, with no visible engines or weapons. They simply hovered, defying gravity and logic. For weeks, humanity had watched them in a state of suspended dread. The ships made no contact, no demands. They did not attack or even move. They just were. The world's governments scrambled to make sense of their presence. Scientists speculated about their propulsion systems and materials. Military strategists debated whether to strike first. Philosophers pondered their purpose. But the invaders offered no clues. Their silence was deafening. In this uneasy standoff, humanity turned inward. The golden age of 2289 had been defined by unity between humans and tech-humans, a partnership forged not out of necessity, but out of choice. The tech-humans were humanity's greatest achievement, beings who seamlessly merged biology with advanced technology. They were faster, stronger, and more resilient than their unaugmented counterparts. Yet they retained all the qualities that made them human: creativity, empathy, and an indomitable will to survive. When the ships arrived, it was clear that this partnership would be tested like never before. The first global summit in response to the invasion convened within hours of the ship's appearance. Leaders from every nation gathered virtually, their holographic avatars projected into a shared digital space. The meeting was tense but focused. Humanity's survival depended on swift action. It was during this summit that the strategy was born, a plan that would leverage the unique strengths of both humans and tech-humans in a united front against the unknown threat. The tech-humans volunteered to take the front lines. Their enhanced bodies gave them infinite stamina and resistance to extreme conditions, qualities that made them ideal for direct engagement with whatever alien forces might emerge from the ships. But it wasn't just their physical superiority that made them indispensable. It was their minds. Unlike machines or artificial intelligences, tech-humans retained human intuition and adaptability, traits that no algorithm could replicate. Behind them stood humanity's unaugmented population, scientists working tirelessly to analyze the invaders' technology, engineers constructing weapons and defenses at breakneck speed, strategists devising plans for every conceivable scenario. Civilians mobilized as well, transforming cities into fortresses and stockpiling supplies for what many feared would be a protracted conflict. Despite the looming threat, there was no panic, only determination. Humanity had faced extinction before: pandemics, climate catastrophes, wars that spanned continents. Each time, they had emerged stronger. This time will be no different. And then it happened. On the 21st day after their arrival, the ships moved for the first time. It began with a low-frequency hum that resonated across the globe, a sound felt more than heard. The ships descended slowly from their positions in the upper atmosphere until they hovered just above ground level or water surfaces. Their immense size became even more apparent as they cast shadows that stretched for miles. Then came the light. Each ship emitted a beam of pure white light from its underside, illuminating the ground below with an intensity that rivaled the sun. Where these beams touched Earth's surface, strange phenomena began to occur. Vegetation withered instantly. Water boiled away into vapor. Buildings crumbled as if aged by centuries and seconds. It was clear this was not a peaceful visitation. The world erupted into action. Military forces mobilized around each ship's location while civilians evacuated en masse. In New York City, the heart of one of Earth's largest arcologies, tech-human units deployed in coordinated waves, their exoskeletons gleaming under the alien light as they formed defensive perimeters around critical infrastructure. But even as humanity prepared for battle, questions lingered. What did these invaders want? Why had they chosen Earth? And most importantly, how could they be stopped? The answers would come soon enough. As humanity braced itself for its greatest challenge yet, one thing became clear. This fight would not be won through brute force alone. It would require ingenuity, sacrifice, and above all else, the unbreakable spirit of a species that refused to surrender its home without a fight. The aliens had underestimated Earth's inhabitants. They saw only fragile bodies and primitive technology, but they hadn't accounted for what lay beneath. A relentless will to survive and thrive against all odds. The battle for Earth was about to begin, and humanity intended to win. The 9 alien ships remained motionless, their obsidian hulls absorbing all light and hope. They hovered over Earth like silent gods, impervious to every assault humanity could muster. For weeks, the world's militaries had thrown everything at them: missiles, railguns, particle beams, even experimental plasma weapons. None of it worked. The ship's surfaces rippled faintly with each impact, as though mocking humanity's efforts. They were untouchable. The frustration was palpable. Humanity had faced existential threats before: climate collapse, pandemics, even near global wars. But this was different. This enemy was beyond comprehension, a force so advanced that it rendered Earth's most powerful weapons as effective as pebbles thrown at a mountain. Still, humanity did not falter. The tech humans took the lead in the counteroffensive. Their enhanced bodies and minds allowed them to endure the grueling pace of relentless planning and experimentation. While unaugmented humans worked tirelessly in labs and command centers, the tech humans stood as Earth's shield. They patrolled the cities beneath the alien shadows, their exoskeletal armor gleaming under the oppressive light of the invaders' beams. The aliens made their first move against these defenders. From within their ships, they unleashed biological weapons, clouds of nanoscopic spores designed to infiltrate and destroy organic life. The spores spread rapidly, carried by winds across continents. Yet when they reached the tech humans, they failed spectacularly. The nanites embedded in their systems identified and neutralized the alien pathogens before they could take root. What the aliens had not anticipated was that these hybrid beings were no longer purely biological. They were something new, something immune to traditional forms of attack. The failure of their biological weapons seemed to anger the invaders, or perhaps it merely triggered the next phase of their plan. The ships began emitting low-frequency pulses that disrupted communications and power grids across large swaths of the planet. Cities plunged into darkness. Satellites fell silent. But even this was not enough to break humanity's resolve. In underground bunkers and floating arcologies, scientists worked around the clock to understand their enemy. Every scrap of data from failed attacks was analyzed and reanalyzed. Why were the ships impervious? What powered them? How could they be stopped? Theories abounded. Some suggested exotic materials beyond human comprehension. Others speculated on energy shields powered by zero-point fields or quantum singularities. Despite their best efforts, no solution emerged. In New York City's arcology, a sprawling megastructure housing millions, General Elena Markov addressed a gathering of Earth's top military minds and tech human leaders. Her voice was steady, but carried an edge of frustration. "We've thrown everything at them," she said, gesturing to a holographic display of one of the alien ships. "And we've learned nothing except that our weapons are useless." A tech human named Kale stepped forward, his cybernetic eyes glowing faintly as he spoke. "Not entirely useless," he said. "Every failed attack gives us data, patterns in how their defenses react, weaknesses in their energy dispersal." Markov frowned. "Weaknesses? We haven't seen any." "Not yet," Kale admitted. "But they're there. No system is perfect." The room fell silent as his words sank in. It was a fragile hope, but it was all they had. Meanwhile, on the ground beneath each ship, humanity continued its desperate struggle for answers. Engineers constructed massive electromagnetic pulse generators in hopes of disrupting whatever systems powered the alien vessels. Hackers attempted to infiltrate the invaders' communication networks, though they had no idea if such networks even existed in forms humans could understand. At one site, beneath the ship hovering over Tokyo Bay, a team of scientists led by Dr. Aiko Tanaka made a startling discovery. Using advanced spectrographic analysis, they detected faint fluctuations in the ship's energy field, fluctuations that seemed to correspond with specific frequencies of electromagnetic radiation. "It's like a heartbeat," Tanaka explained during a global broadcast to Earth's scientific community. "A rhythm in their defenses. If we can find a way to disrupt it." Her words ignited a flurry of activity across the planet. Laboratories redirected their efforts toward understanding these energy fluctuations while military forces prepared for another round of attacks, this time guided by Tanaka's findings. But time was running out. The alien ships began deploying smaller craft, sleek drones that moved with terrifying speed and precision. These drones targeted key infrastructure, power plants, water treatment facilities, food distribution centers. They didn't kill indiscriminately. Instead, they seemed intent on crippling humanity's ability to sustain itself. Still, humanity fought back with everything it had. Tech humans led daring raids against the drones using experimental weapons designed to exploit Tanaka's findings about energy field fluctuations. While many such attempts ended in failure, or worse, devastating losses, each engagement yielded more data for Earth's scientists and strategists. And through it all, humanity refused to surrender. In Rio de Janeiro's floating platforms, children painted murals depicting humans and tech humans standing together against towering black ships. In Cairo's solar deserts, farmers continued tending crops beneath the shadow of an alien vessel that blotted out half the sky. In Berlin's orbital elevator hub, engineers worked tirelessly to keep supply lines open between Earth and its colonies on Mars and Luna. Humanity endured, not because it was stronger or smarter than its enemy, but because it was relentless. The aliens might have been centuries ahead in technology, but they lacked one crucial thing: an understanding of what it meant to be human, to fight not just for survival but for each other. As days turned into weeks and weeks into months, one thing became clear. This war would not be won quickly or easily, but it would be won because humanity had faced impossible odds before, and every time, it had emerged stronger than ever. This time will be no different. The breakthrough came not from a weapon, but from a sound so high-pitched that no human ear could detect it. For weeks, humanity had been throwing everything at the alien ships: missiles, plasma beams, electromagnetic pulses. None of it worked. The ships absorbed every attack like ancient monoliths weathering a storm, their matte black surfaces rippling faintly in acknowledgement, but remaining entirely unharmed. But then, in a small underground lab beneath what remained of Berlin's orbital elevator hub, a team of acoustic engineers stumbled upon something extraordinary. While analyzing the energy fluctuations detected in the ship's defensive fields, they discovered that certain high-frequency sound waves, frequencies far beyond the range of human hearing, caused minute disruptions in the alien energy patterns. It wasn't much, just a flicker, but it was enough to spark hope. The sound was tested and refined. Using experimental sonic generators capable of producing frequencies above 100 kilohertz, the engineers created a focused beam of sound that could penetrate the alien ship's energy fields. The effect was immediate and undeniable. The once impenetrable hulls began to vibrate visibly under the assault. It wasn't enough to destroy them. Not yet, but it was the first sign that these invincible titans could be hurt. Word spread quickly. Across the globe, teams scrambled to replicate the technology. Factories were repurposed overnight to produce sonic weapons on an unprecedented scale. The tech humans took charge of deploying these new devices, their enhanced bodies allowing them to endure the grueling physical demands of operating the high-energy equipment. The first coordinated attack was launched against the ship hovering over Tokyo Bay. A fleet of drones equipped with sonic emitters swarmed the vessel, focusing their beams on its underside where the energy field appeared weakest. For hours, the ship withstood the assault, its hull vibrating violently, but remaining intact. And then something happened that no one expected. The ship opened. A massive hatch slid open along its side, revealing an interior that glowed with an eerie, bioluminescent light. From within emerged creatures unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Huge, floating beings that resembled grotesque octopuses. Their bulbous bodies pulsed with an unnatural light, and their long, sinewy tentacles writhed as though tasting the air around them. They were horrifyingly alien. Their skin was slick and translucent, revealing veins of glowing fluid coursing through their bodies. Their eyes, if they could be called eyes, were clusters of shifting orbs that seemed to stare in every direction at once. But it wasn't just their appearance that unnerved humanity. It was how they moved. They floated effortlessly through the air as though gravity held no sway over them, their tentacles coiling and uncoiling with an unsettling grace. And then they attacked. The first wave of tech humans engaged immediately, their advanced reflexes and augmented strength giving them a fighting chance against these monstrous invaders. But it quickly became clear that brute force alone would not be enough. The creatures possessed telekinetic abilities unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. With a mere flick of their tentacles, or perhaps just a thought, they could hurl vehicles through the air or crush armored soldiers as though they were made of paper. Entire squads were wiped out in seconds as tanks crumpled like soda cans and buildings collapsed under invisible forces. Yet for all their power, the aliens were not invincible. The sonic weapons proved effective against them as well. When exposed to sustained high-frequency blasts, their movements became erratic and disoriented, their telekinetic attacks faltering. The battle raged on for hours beneath Tokyo Bay's shadowed skies. Civilians watched from underground shelters as their defenders fought valiantly against an enemy that seemed pulled from humanity's darkest nightmares. And though many lives were lost, humanity held its ground. Similar scenes played out across the globe as more ships opened and released their grotesque occupants. In New York City's arcology, tech humans led daring raids against alien strongholds using portable sonic emitters to drive back the floating horrors. In Cairo's solar deserts, nomadic communities joined forces with military units to lure the creatures into ambushes where massive sonic cannons awaited them. But for every victory, there were losses. The aliens adapted quickly to humanity's tactics, using their telekinesis to shield themselves from sonic attacks or redirecting projectiles back at their attackers. And while they appeared vulnerable to high-frequency sound, no one knew how long it would take to exploit this weakness fully, or if it would be enough to turn the tide of war. In underground bunkers and floating cities around the world, scientists worked tirelessly to refine their understanding of both the ships and their horrifying occupants. Why did high-frequency sound affect them? Were they communicating through these frequencies? Or was it something deeper, something intrinsic to their biology or technology? As these questions lingered unanswered, one thing became clear. This was no longer just a battle for survival. It was a battle for understanding. Humanity had always thrived on its ability to adapt and innovate under pressure. And now, faced with an enemy unlike any other, a foe that wielded powers beyond comprehension, it would need to push itself further than ever before. The war was far from over, but humanity had found its weapon, and it would not stop until every last alien ship was brought down from the skies, and every last floating monstrosity driven back into whatever abyss they had come from. The war raged on, and humanity, relentless as ever, adapted once again. The sonic weapons had given Earth its first real victories, disorienting the grotesque floating creatures that emerged from the alien ships. But disorientation wasn't enough. The aliens' telekinetic abilities continued to wreak havoc, and for everyone that was incapacitated by sound, many more inflicted devastating losses on the defenders. Cities burned, landscapes were scarred, and the skies were filled with the eerie glow of alien bioluminescence. It was during one of these desperate battles, beneath the shadow of the ship over Cairo, that humanity stumbled upon its next breakthrough. A tech-human soldier named Dax, equipped with an experimental plasma rifle modified to deliver high-voltage electric shocks, struck one of the creatures during a close encounter. The result was immediate and shocking, literally. The alien convulsed violently, its tentacles flailing uncontrollably before it collapsed to the ground in a lifeless heap. Electricity. That was the key. The discovery spread like wildfire across Earth's scattered command networks. Engineers and scientists worked around the clock to retrofit existing weapons with high-voltage capabilities. Portable Tesla cannons were developed in days, their coils crackling with arcs of blue lightning. Drones were equipped with electrified payloads designed to deliver precise shocks to the aliens mid-flight. Even civilian resistance groups began rigging crude electric traps in their homes and streets. The next major confrontation took place in Rio de Janeiro's floating platforms. As another wave of alien octopus-like creatures descended from their hovering ship, humanity struck back with its new arsenal. The results were devastating for the aliens. Electric weapons bypassed their telekinetic defenses entirely, delivering shocks that overloaded their nervous systems and left them writhing helplessly before succumbing. For the first time since the arrival, humanity had not just held its ground, but pushed back decisively. The tide began to turn. One by one, the alien ships began retreating. The massive vessels that had once loomed over Earth's greatest cities now ascended into the skies, their smooth black hulls reflecting none of the carnage they had caused below. It was not an orderly withdrawal. It was a retreat, a sign that these invaders, for all their technological superiority, had underestimated humanity's resilience and ingenuity. By the end of the third month since the arrival, 8 of the 9 ships had vanished entirely, disappearing into the void from which they had come. They left no trace behind, no signals, no debris, just silence and a battered but unbroken Earth. But one ship remained. The vessel over New York City's arcology did not retreat with its counterparts. Instead, it descended further toward Earth's surface until it hovered mere meters above what remained of Manhattan's skyline. From within its massive hull emerged wave after wave of alien creatures, more than any other ship had released before. It was clear this was no mere battle. It was a final stand. Humanity responded in kind. Every available unit, tech humans, unaugmented soldiers, drones, even hastily armed civilians, converged on New York for what would become known as the last battle. Sonic emitters disoriented the creatures as Tesla cannons and electrified drones delivered killing blows. The fighting was brutal and chaotic. Entire city blocks were leveled as telekinetic forces collided with human ingenuity. But humanity refused to yield. By the end of the battle, every last alien creature had been neutralized. Their grotesque forms littered the streets of New York City like nightmarish sculptures frozen in death. The final ship remained motionless above them for hours before its lights dimmed and its engines fell silent. It did not retreat like the others. It simply stopped functioning altogether. Earth's defenders wasted no time seizing this opportunity. Teams of tech humans equipped with cutting-edge tools breached the ship's hull for the first time since the arrival. What they found inside defied explanation. Vast chambers filled with bioluminescent organic structures that pulsed faintly even in death. Rows upon rows of strange pods containing what appeared to be embryonic versions of the floating creatures. And at its core, a massive crystalline structure that seemed to hum faintly with residual energy. The ship was dead, but its secrets remained very much alive. In the days that followed, humanity began its grim work of understanding what had happened and preparing for what might come next. Scientists dissected the alien bodies recovered from battlefields around the world, analyzing their biology in hopes of uncovering weaknesses or insights into their origins. Engineers dismantled sections of the downed ship piece by piece, reverse engineering its technology to bolster Earth's defenses. There were no celebrations, not yet. The cost of victory had been too high, billions dead or displaced, entire cities reduced to rubble, ecosystems disrupted by months of war. But amidst the ruins stood a united humanity, a species that had faced annihilation and emerged stronger for it. In a broadcast from New York City's arcology, the epicenter of both invasion and victory, General Elena Markov addressed a weary but hopeful world. "They came here believing we were weak," she said, her voice steady despite visible exhaustion. They saw only flesh and blood, fragile bodies bound by gravity and limited by time. They thought they could break us. She paused, her gaze sweeping across her audience, as though speaking directly to each individual watching from shelters and rebuilt homes across Earth. But they didn't understand what it means to be human. Cheers erupted across every corner of Earth as her words echoed through screens and speakers. A rallying cry for a species that refused to be conquered. The final alien ship was transported piece by piece to secure research facilities around the globe for study. Its secrets would take years, perhaps decades, to unravel fully. But one thing was certain: humanity would be ready if they ever returned. And so ended the arrival. Not with despair or defeat, but with hope. A hope forged in fire and tempered by unity. Humanity had faced an enemy beyond comprehension, and won. Not because it was stronger or smarter than its invaders, but because it was relentless. Because it was human,